And so now let's transition to something that was very interesting to me, right? I remember having conversations with you before you became a wife and a mother, and us talking about dating. And I remember talking to you about, would you ever marry an African? And he was like, absolutely not. But on today, you are married to a Nigerian man. So let's dive into that. You are married to a Nigerian.
I don't know how it happened.
You said you're not even interested in marrying an African. I'm gonna push here. I want to believe that your trip to Africa somehow opened your mind up to even being open to dating.
Our trip to Ghana, it made me even more adamant to heck no, I'm not marrying nobody from Africa.
God. Oh my God. So
I came back seeing men in a very negative light after that trip.
Oh my Lord. You got traumatized. Look, you got traumatized in Ghana.
No, it was the conversations. I saw the places that we visited.
Yeah.
There were the women that were working. They were, and this was the culture again, but I'm from America. And so the women didn't speak. The men always spoke for them. And then every man I saw on the street while driving was laying down somewhere, laying down, like resting on a bench or sitting down with friends, talking. Every single woman I saw carrying something on their head, selling something in the street, carrying babies, like walking somewhere on a mission.
Yeah.
Every man I saw was chilling. I don't know the circumstances. I don't know the context, but every single male and every single female. So after that, I just made my own assumptions and my own judgments. And I was like, heck no. And so, but when I came, you want me to talk about meeting him?
So let's talk about meeting him and how are you even open when you knew that, he's a Nigerian. And let's get real about your real perceptions and assumptions. And I'm glad you mentioned that, right? It is an assumption because people are gonna come for you in the comments. Okay, so I'm just letting you know. But you seem like a pretty tough person, especially when you talk about the men and the women. But there is some real dynamics of men being in a certain position in society. That's a fact. So you meet your husband. Let's talk about it. What was your perceptions of him? He's a Nigerian, but somehow you're now Mrs. What's your last name again?
Ayeni.
Yeah.
So it probably helped that we met on Tinder.
Y'all met on Tinder?
Yes. Wow. It was a picture and we text, and it was like good messaging back and forth, and it was like, let's talk. And then as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, where are you from? And like that was like the first conversation. He was like, oh yeah, like, so I'm Nigerian, and we talked about that. Like, really? Did not expect that. And we talked, and a lot of his conversation was like, well, first one of his first questions was, so like, have you ever dated an African, and like, would you like date me now since you know that I'm Nigerian? And I told him up front, I was like, no, I haven't, and no, I never wanted to, for multiple reasons. And he was like, well, why? And I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Break down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the folks.
First it was the student, so the young men that I've known my age and undergrad and in grad school that were African, like, they were sweet, cool guys. But when you have a long conversation with them about personal matters, you do hear things like, like I've heard someone say, oh shoot, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry, the video went away. Okay,
really?
Sorry. Yeah, so the video went away for a minute. But yeah, so I've heard of American-born African with I guess he was first generation. And so but he spoke about how women should have children and know how to cook, and that should be their role. And he was the sweetest guy ever, but that was his opinion. And I was like, oh, well, that's shocking. And then I've heard other men, say, after I get, my degree, I'm very excited. I do want to get married, but not until, this time. And then, I'll settle down with a wife and have kids. And I hope she's like this. And it was just like the few comments that I've heard, not many, but the few comments that I've heard, I was like, it seems as though there's a hierarchy within their comments, like between the men and the women. And I was like, that's not how I want to live. And then from my experience in Ghana, by the men who I did interact with, and also like the men I just saw randomly throughout the streets, I was like, I know there's a hierarchy, and like this is what they expect. This is the even if like they aren't mean or demanding, but it's an expectation. If this is your
Yeah.
culture and this is where you come
Yeah.
from, and you're used to the women having this role and you're used to the man having this role, why would I get into that? So, and so I told him about, and then also like, and then I was like, and then there's the exaggerated opinion of what you hear on TV, that all African men are oppressive and they might beat you and all these other things. And that's the exaggerated version and what you hear on TV. And so I was like, but that's there. I was like, but that's that. And
A
so
lot of
I was
people
like,
think that way.
yeah. And I was like, and I don't know. No one ever proved it wrong. So I don't know. And so yeah, that's what I told him, and he was just like, man, that's messed up. And I was all like, that's what I got. And then so he started to just explain to me like, well, you know what? He was like, I know a lot of men that are like that, but I know a lot of men that aren't. And he was like, especially like my generation, he was like, I'm against polygamy. And he was like, when it comes to like the man and the woman typical roles, he was like, I'm just not like that. He was like, if you don't want to work, and and we, and I'm able to take care of you, I will be okay with that. But I'd rather, my wife, like have something that she wants to invest her time in, and she's passionate about something. And he was like, you seem very intelligent. And he was like, you seem like you really love your job. And he was like, I love that about you. And so we had that conversation, and then I was like, well, how would you be when it comes to, I was like, what if your wife made more money than you? How would you feel? And then, what if, when children come around, like, what are the roles in the house going to be like? What about chores? What about cooking? Because I don't cook. Like I try, but I can't. I don't know how. And so, so I was like, I'm not a good cook. So like, and I know that's a big thing, not just for African men, but for African American men. Like that's a deal breaker. And so I was
Some
like,
for
what about
some
you?
for some
Yeah,
some
yeah,
African American men.
for men,
Maybe
yeah,
maybe a lot.
for
Maybe a
some.
lot. Yeah, maybe a lot, but
And so I'm like, and it honestly, and that sentiment doesn't even come from me, and that comes from the women in my life,
yeah,
like telling
yeah.
me that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, so I should know how to cook, or unless I ain't gonna be able to find a man. And so I'm like, how do you feel about that? Because if we were together, you're not getting a meal every day, even if I wanted to. And so he was like, I don't care about that. He's like, I know how to take care of myself. And like he was like, if you're a good person, and if we mesh, if you ain't crazy, that's what he was like, if you're not crazy, and if you don't try to kill me, we good. And so like a lot of our conversation, he expressed like kind of like, what is it? I don't know, meant some of like my worries. And of course, he was just a good guy. He was a good guy, a great guy. We had fun together. Our conversations were awesome. He and I did feel that like he really did like he loved like that I had something to say. He's more on the quiet side. I talk a bunch. And so he loves that. And he's like, I don't know. So like we found each other, although our cultures are different. We found like we connected as like people and as individuals. Now our cultures after when once did get married, that collided a little bit, but for us as people, it was great.
You know what? So we have a few minutes left, but I do want to talk just briefly about it. He's not here to share more, so I don't want to share so much to where he can't come in with the his
Hmm.
side of it. But let's talk a little bit about some of those cultural differences, that may bring about real conflict. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And you ain't got to spill all the beans. I don't
And
want you to get
so
in trouble after he see this.
we actually haven't had conflict over it. I would say it's difficult for me, honestly, for I'm shoot, I thought I was able to adapt and I'm flexible. I'm not. And so, but he's pretty chill. And so when it comes to him kind of being settled within my family culture, he's good.
Mm,
And like it was me adapting into, and also he speaks English. And so I don't speak Yoruba. And so that's a big thing for me. I'm like, they're comfortable. His family is comfortable, more comfortable speaking in Yoruba with one another. They
yeah,
do
yeah,
English and Yoruba just a little bit, but for the most part, like I can't understand it. And so if I'm hanging out with your family, like I feel like a little bit of an outsider. And so he's very helpful with like, helping me to be in the conversation and things like that. But that's a big thing. I can't even talk to your family like I would love to
I
if we
get you.
spoke the same language. And then cooking, like, and this was my own insecurity that I expressed with him. I feel bad that even because I do know how to cook some things, but they're typical American dishes. And so I would love to, like, I would like if I was married to an African American man, I could make some macaroni and cheese, and that might be something
Yeah,
he'd be geeked about.
yeah.
But for him, he grew up on amala and
Yes.
jollof
I want the
rice
goat
and
meat with the jollof and goat meat.
yeah,
You
and
can prepare
so
goat meat.
and what is it? And even some, and I'm a picky eater, so a lot of their like typical dishes, I don't mess with, and I don't like spicy food. That's like half the things there. And then
Lord
like,
have
and I would
mercy.
love to just like cook something that like he loved when he was 5. But like that's not something I used to. So I gotta like really put in work and intention to learn something new. It's not something that comes easy because I've been doing it all my life. Now I have to work a little bit harder because it is a different culture. And and so yeah, so it's things like that. Yeah, it's things like that. But we've
Wow.
never had conflict over. We've been able just like to like talk about it, and usually it is like kind of me that's having like the issue because I feel like I gotta adjust so much, and he's like just real chill.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's, marriage is definitely one of those situations where you learn so much about yourself, and a lot of times what you realize is most of the problems that you a lot of times have is just you as an individual. It's not even a
Mhm.
person. But I think
Yeah.
that talking about those cultural issues, actually, I would long term, I want to do a whole series on black love, and it's really about people who've married interculturally, even from different tribes and stuff like that, because some of these things do come into, maybe not when I say conflict, I'm not talking about like fighting and stuff, but just like maybe just it feels a little bit awkward, like when someone is around their family and you feel more comfortable speaking your native language, but then your spouse doesn't speak that language, and and then even what that makes you feel like, are they laughing at me? They looked in my direction, they laughed, they done laughed 3 times
Mhm.
now. They look at
Mhm.
me. what, what are they saying? You know what I'm saying? Um, and all those things, I think all those things are little bitty challenges to be overcome if you got the right two people that's in your relationship. One of the last questions I have for you is, now, what have you learned about yourself specifically as like a black person? Like, what has your perception been? How has it changed of you as, let's say, a black person now that you've been exposed to the continent? You're in an intercultural marriage. Are you the same? Are your perimeters of blackness expanded? Do you still identify as black? Are you transracial? I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
um, it's hard to say like how much I feel like I've grown in my perspective because it's been a few years of a lot of learning and lessons and like coming face to face with like kind of who I think I was and who I am and all the whatever. But I think like one of the biggest things is understanding my perspective is not the global perspective. Because I live in America, we live in a
mm,
very specific culture of race.
mm,
And like like my husband, I don't know if he was honestly can't even say if he was joking or not, but he called me racist so many times when we like within our first 2 years because of how I would talk about
yeah.
like black and white relations. And he like,
Hmm.
bruh, like why are you so hype? And I'm like, because this matters and this still going on and this is affecting our world today and all the things. And like I still feel that way very heavily. But
Hmm.
he's like, because he didn't grow up and surrounded by that message, like you said, then it's not a focus. And then that's not a focus. And I realized that's not a focus. And me also working in a university with students and international students and domestic students, that's not a focus for international students. Like, because they're like, what's the big deal? Like, we're here. Aren't you in school for an education? Why do you care if the teacher looks at you or says something to you? Why do you care if a student, like, thinks a certain way because you wearing a do-rag? Or why does it matter? Like, as long as they give you the grade you deserve, as long as they don't kick you out the class, because aren't you there for education? I don't understand. Like, and we're like, for us, no, for us, it matters of like how we feel in our space. And they're like, no, our goal, our priority is education, and that trumps everything. And we're like, no, it's the way you go about it. And so yeah, it's just like our perspective from the global perspective is very different. And it's like, sometimes it makes me do wonder, like, what is more important right now? What is worth the fight? Which battle do I pick? And so yeah, it's just interesting. I think I don't know. There's so much. Specifically, I know, like, for Zion, we've definitely, like, talked about how are we going to raise him and educate him about Black history, because legit, Henry was like, if you teach him exactly how you might teach him, he might grow up hating white folk. And honestly, that might be true. And if Henry teaches him, then he's not going to know, like much about, like, why you should know your history, so it's not repeated. And so now we both, like, and we both realize how, like, we both got to meet in the middle a little bit, because I have to have some grace, and then he has to, like, be a little bit more intentional, because it does matter. Like, but it doesn't matter to the point where, like, it's the top priority in every single matter of your life, but it does matter. And so, like, even with us coming together, and honestly figuring out and, like, coming to a compromise how we're going to, like, raise Zion as a conscious and respectful and level-headed young Black man, like,
look, he up there, he's like, yeah, mom, I hear you, that's right, he up there.
And so, like, we were like, that's been a blessing to me, because honestly, I didn't know how. I literally felt, after going to Ghana, and like I didn't feel like I was gonna come back, hating white folks, but I was still very upset. And then working with students, we take them on trips to, like, different museums, and because I work with, like, Black and brown students, it's always African American museum, always something about slavery, always something about this, always something about that. And so, like, by one of the museums I went to twice, I couldn't walk around. I got a stomach ache. I felt sick. And I literally, like, I was like, I can't, I'm going to sit over here and I'm going to wait till y'all done in another hour. And it was like, Dillian, you're not going to see the rest of the things. I've seen it already. It's okay. Because it's traumatic. And so, I've grown into, like, more, I want to know these things, but I've really understood them more as an adult. And so I've experienced a lot in the past, like, 10 years of our history, and it's very traumatic. And I don't want to, like, dump all that on my son, where, like, I know how to help him express it and deal and cope and like go through it in a healthy way. I want you to learn from it from a healthy perspective. And so, and I don't think I learned it from a healthy perspective. And so, but Henry, like, he's going to help me kind of meet in the middle to do that.
Man, you're really saying some. As I hear you talk, I can hear the evolution of your identity, as a God-created person of African descent, living in a racialized context in this, you know what I'm saying, intercultural marriage, where you're trying to love as a wife and as a professional and as a mother. And it is cumbersome. And I think that you guys have a wonderful opportunity, because, like you said, it does matter, right? Because the benefits that all our African brothers are experiencing in America is a result of us, right? How we fought and bled and died and fought for not just getting on the bus, but affirmative action. And the fact that you can come here and even work, right? Like some of our students that we work with, get a 4-year degree. Now you're making $75,000 with an IT degree. That's because we really broke down the doors so that you can come and be looked at in a certain way. But if we don't know the history, then what happens is we have this conflict where the African immigrant will come and say, what's wrong with y'all? Like, I come from real poverty. Y'all ain't got real poverty over here. And we say, well, you don't know how much we've been traumatized. Why are y'all talking about this race? But understanding that there is a real shared history that we have, and it's so important to know that. Otherwise, we end up poverty, out povertying each other. Well, you ain't know this, you ain't know it. Well, yeah. At the end of the day, what could happen if we have experiences where Zion can come to Ghana and stay at the nice hotels and all that, right? But also, if he wants to connect with agencies and organizations to help globally, now he has that different experience to know what it's like. And like you said, I experienced the same thing. One of the last things I'll say is when we just had a group of people that came from the States, and some amazing people bought my son books, but some of the books were on like how to talk to the police and stuff like this. And I looked at it and I was like, I'm so blessed that Twahaji's in Ghana right now. We don't have to have this conversation right now. Like, my son doesn't even know that he's Black. We're teaching him about what it means to be a God-centered person of African descent. And when you ask him where he's from, he'll say Africa. Although in school, you have to identify what specific region you're from. It's like, Daddy, where's my region? I said, oh, we don't have a region in Ghana. We just tell your teacher we're from Africa. We don't have a region. We're from Africa. That's all they need to know. So anything for somebody out there watching this, that's where you were years ago, maybe they're closed off to even reconnecting with their roots because they think it's so traumatic. And it is traumatic. Let's be honest. It is traumatic if we only go back to a certain point. What advice would you give that person that's trying to explore who they are, but they're like, man, it's easier to not know than to open up so much and just, be traumatized?
I would say do baby steps. Like, if you want to learn and to, if you think, you want to, gain that education, that insight, but you like, it's too much, then you don't have to go to the slave castle. You can read a book. You can watch YouTube videos, like watch your channel and get like real life just discussions about it, about like other people's real life perceptions. And then of course, like the more you listen to these things, and like they'll find their own peak of interest. They're like, okay, I might not want to learn about this aspect, but I do want to learn about, the chiefs. I want to learn about, the resources in Ghana. I want to learn about the economy, whatever it is. I say just like, but definitely do it. Take a baby step. Don't ignore it. I feel like that's a detriment. Is to ignore it. I think it is very beneficial to at least like just go for it in some form. I think my mistake was going like diving in like it all at once, and not just going to Ghana, but I don't know, just a lot of things I did. I kind of like I dived in. But if you just take baby steps, have conversations with people, and find out where your interests lie and where you do want to like learn more and expand your knowledge on your people. And it doesn't have to be, it's not just like, your Black Americans. It's like globally, learn about Black Latinas, learn about, the culture somewhere, and, where Black people ended up everywhere. And so learn about Black peoples in other spaces. And that is going to expand your knowledge. So I don't know, that would be my little advice.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really do appreciate it. I think you provided a lot of great insight. You share some real stories because everybody's experience is not the same. So thank you for being open and honest and, straight dog in Ghana. No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
I appreciate it because I do love being able to talk about this and having time to explain it, because legit, that's how I sound. If somebody be like, oh, how was your experience from Ghana? And then I'd be like, but like, I want to give it was beneficial. But like that's the kind of like sentiment I give to other folks when it's like, oh, like real quick answer. I can't give a quick answer. It's complex, just like our history is complex. And so, yeah, I appreciate the time and for hearing me out.
Lord, I see PhD in your future. I'm prophesying right now. PhD. I'm speaking. No, I ain't speaking nothing. But who knows? I can see
Zion, PhD.
I'm telling you, no, Dr. Ayeni, right?
And him, Dr. Zion Oluwatobi Ayeni.
Hey, hey, you better come on with that whole, them Nigerians be having like 38 letters in one name.
We went a little halfway simple.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate it. I pray that you guys have many more amazing, wonderful conversations. And I really do pray that raising Zion will be an opportunity to, number one, trust God in the process, and be able to know that as you educate them, you really are educating somebody that's going to impact the world. So thank you for your time today. I sincerely appreciate it. And best of blessings to you. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. I sincerely appreciate it. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe. Until next time, peace.